Alelie tuna numobi, alelie bueno mo, alelie bueno mo. Kedebe nsọpụrụ jalo ka m jụọ. Melenu achụjụ ka mụ na-ajụ anyị ejiri konye aga n'ụwa ndị ọchịchụnụ ka mụ na-ajụ bụ gịnị ka anyị melụ ọ na-abụzi njọ na anyị bụ ndị Igbo ka m jụọ ọ na-abụzi njọ na anyị bụ dị ndị Igbo ajụjụ ka mụ na-ajụ mmadụ biko zanụ alili ekwu enumo alili ekwu enumo asọpụrụ abịazi ma ncha maka ndị ọchịchị ugwu abịazi ma ncha bụrụ maka ndị ọchịchị unu nye anyị Biafra mana unu jụrụ ajụ unu chịkwa n'anya ọfụma mana unu jụrụ ajụ unu doziela anyị ụzọ mana unu jụrụ ajụ anyị sị ka anyị n'ụlọ onwe anyị mana unu jụkwala ajụ unu chọrọ ibudi anyị ebe ụka ịchụọ ọkwa ndị ọchịchị kpọrụrụ ndị ama iwe kpojuo South East niile ọ bụ gịnị ka anyị melụ ọkwa nke anyị ka anyị nọchọ ndị amị unu achọsi onye unu ga-akpali ọ bụrụ chi nwetalago a very big name our own legendary in Nollywood alili ekwenu ewu na lili ekwenu mo ọ bụ gịnị ka anyị mere ụwa ka m jụ iji flag Biafra wee kwasị akwa achụrụ m ajụjụ obodo njọ kedu ife Igbo medịlị unu kedu ife anyị mere unu ka m jụọ ewu na lili ekwenu mo Chukwu kere n'igwe n'ụwa kwinọ n'igwe afụ ifulifa na-eme ụmụ Igbo Chukwu ị ga-agba dị nkịtị ka mmiri ị ga-agba nkịtị ka ncha weba n'anya anya Chukwu Olisa kele ụwa bịa kene okenye mmadụ ka ụmụntakịrị nechala anya wee kpalịa n'etiti ilo alili ebuenumo, alili echunanumobi, alili ebuenumo, alili ebuenumo. Kedebe nsọpụrụ jelu ka m jụọ. Kedebe nsọpụrụ jelu ka m jụọ. Na famara si okenye chacha. Ọ bụ gịnị ka Igbo melụ? Kedu ife anyị melụ ka m jụọ. Ifuru ndị na-akpọ onwe fa ndị ọchịchị, ndị afọ nọ si n'ọchịchị. Ife mma bụ na ife onye metụrụ n'elu ụwa ka oge ji si ebulu. Ife onye metụrụ onye so ya gaa. Ome mma na mma ya na. Ome njọ na njọ ya na n'elu ụwa. Oche ọchịchị afọ nọ na yika ya chicha welituo. Ị na-anụ ife na-ekwu. Maka na ike iji malụ mmadụ mgbe na chi ka a ga-eji malụ gị n'ilitu. Ibe anyị na-asụ n'ugwu n'unu ụra n'anya ka anyị nwelu n'onwe anyị. Na mmadụ chọrọ ịnọlụ onwe ya ọ bụzi njọ ka mụ na-achụ. Ewedala okenye ewu etibe wekụba ya ife. Etibe ya ife, akụba ya ife, ọ dịzi mma. Ọ bụ gịnị ka anyị melụ? Una gebuda nebu na anyị sele ka anyị nabaza ka anyị bụrụ Biafra. Una gebu anyị bu na anyị sele ka anyị na ka anyị n'ọlụ onwe anyị. Ọ bụ gịnị ka anyị melụ? Una gebuda anyị ebu ka m jụọ. Una gebuda anyị ebu ka m jụọ. Ewedala okenye mmadụ wekparịa n'etiti ilo ji nwe atalago a legendary. Ụmụ Igbo na-alụ na-emezikwanụ ife anọ bụkwanụ. Ife bụkwa nsọ anyị. Alili egbuenumo, alili egbuenumo. Ụmụnne m alili egbuenumo. Chukwu kelụwa gị ka m na-akpọ. Chukwu okike bịa ma gị ka anyị na-akpọ esemokene. Chukwu olise gị bịa. Bịa kene n'ife na-emebi. Olisa gị bịa kene. Chukwu olisa n'ife na-emebi. Isi ladi yọ na anyị ga-ayọta. Onye na-akụ ka ị ga-eme lụọ. Ekwena ka afụfụ niile anyị na-ata n'ije ọ bụrụ na nkịtị. Chukwu olisa lelekwanụ m. Ọ na-abụrụ onye ka anyị ga-akpọ. Onye melụ nwata tolite. Nwata gọọmenti kwesịrị inyela aka. Sokwa ma n'akwụkwọ ka esi eme n'obodo ndị dị iche iche. Ụmụaka Igbo na-ebido n'ụmụazị ata afụfụ. Bido n'ụmụaka lebe pure water. Wee bido n'ụmụazị wee lebe oroma. Ọ bụrụ maka ife ụbịa mụ na kwụsị. Ndị nọ n'ọchịchị na-eri ego mana ndị fanachi na-ata afụfụ. Asị ma alili egbuenumo. Anyị siri ka anyị nazi aka anyị nwere onwe anyị. Ọ bụ gịnị ka anyị melụ ka m jụọ. Una ga-ebuda na-ebu ka m jụọ. Una ga-ebuda na-ebu maka ife anyị. Una ga-elede nyele maka ife anyị. Mama 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 Olisa nunu me Ibu dafi babu sinjo Opife na yogi chukwu Olisa biko Umunne munike nenenem Andike no na South East Andike no na la Biafra Chukwu Olisa biko Onwe ikaga ya fuhanya Onwe mberadaga ya fuhanya Raka gidi gebuchi ha Ese na mpedonya Amamnegi me Isi lani onye na yoka ayota Onye na kwaka kike meru Chukwu Olisa dobianu eze bubebe Otu aga dị njọ, ọ ga-adịlele mma. Ka anyị nọdụ n'ebele chekwube Chukwu Olisa, emesa na ọ ga-adị mma n'ụwa. Maka na ife mma bụ n'ikpeazụ na anyị ga-enwe mmeri. Chukwu Olisa, gị ka anyị na ya. Chukwu kere ụwa, gị ka anyị na ya. Chukwu bịa kene, ewu Chukwu bịa kene. Ndị ọchịchị nyere anyị, bana chigbuzie anya chigbu, ọ bụ gịnị ka anyị mere ka m na-ajụ? Ọ bụ dịka onye ka anyị ji aga n'ụwa, anyị echika onye aga, ọ bụ dịka onye ka anyị ji aga n'ụwa. Chukwu bịa n'ụlọ anyị, Chukwu bịa n'ụlọ anyị, Chukwu bịa n'ụlọ anyị, Chukwu Olisa bịa n'ụlọ anyị, Chukwu Olisa bịa n'ụlọ anyị, anyị na-ayọ gị. Chukwu anyị na-ayọ gị, Chukwu anyị na-ayọ gị, Chukwu anyị na-ayọ gị, Chukwu anyị na-ayọ gị. Ka anyị nọ n'onwe anyị, ọ bụ gịnị ka anyị melụ ka m jụ? Anyị bụrụ mmadụ ka m jụọ, o nwere onye anyị chọrọ nke ya? Ọ bụ dị gịnị ka anyị melụ lenu unu jachụrụ anyị kirikirikiri unu gbuo ọ bụ gịnị ka anyị melụ ofufe mmadụ bụ na Biafra ga-abịa ma fekwelu ma fekweghị Biafra ga-abịarịrị emecha n'ikpeazụ emecha n'oge dị mma maka na anyị nwe mmeri n'ikpeazụ Chukwu Olisa anya ya gị bịa n'ụlọ anyị Chukwu 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 Olisa bịa kene Chukwu Olisa bịa kene Chukwu Olisa bịa kene Chukwu Olisa anyị na ya gị Chukwu bịa kene 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 Chukwu bịa n'ụlọ anyị Chukwu bịa a na-egbuo m Chineke nna anyị onye kere eluigwe n'ụwa anyị ma ọnwụnwa juru n'ụzọ ndụ anyị ịza gị anyị onye ga-aza anyị zani Chukwu kere ụwa zani onye kere n'igwe n'ụwa zani ọnwụnwa juru n'ụzọ ndụ anyị zani ịza anyị anyị onye ga-aza anyị zani Chineke nna zani onye kere eluigwe n'ụwa ụmụ Igbo n'anya zani aka jụwa biko zani ịgbanye nkịtị ife na-emebi n'ezianụ n'ọnwụnwa juru n'ụzọ ndụ anyị zani Chukwu okike abịa ma zani
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, great Biafrans and lovers of freedom. This is Radio Biafra Hausa service coming to you through the auspices of Radio Biafra London. My name remains Mazi Chinedu. Today is the 8th day of the 10th month, which is October in the year of our Lord 2021. Without wasting time, we are going to hand over the microphone to our HOD, head of the directorate, Mazi Chika Edoziem. Please, over to you, Mazi.
Thank you, Mazi. Jonathan. Am I coming out clear, please?
You are coming out crystal clear. Please, go on.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, and good night to you, wonderful and great Biafran people. My name is Mazi Chika Edoziem. I come from Ihe Oma. Ihe Oma is in Olu province of Biafra land. By the grace of Chukwu Kikabiama Prumihenine, I serve the indigenous people of Biafra in the Directorate of State as the head of directorate. Permit me to begin this evening to extend the greetings of the leader of this great movement, the supreme commander of the indigenous people of Biafra, Onyendumazi Nnamdi Kanu, to the worldwide IPB family. I believe many of you already have seen the update from our attorney, the very honorable barrister Ifeanyi Ejiofor. But I would not start this evening without intimating Biafrans worldwide that Onyendu, as he is worth doing, once again sends his love and greetings and regards to each and every one of us, and we are all in his prayers. And we as well must continue to put him in our prayers and our supplications before Elohim. Great Biafrans, I want to begin this very night or morning, afternoon, depending on your time zone. I want to begin with the meeting that was held by the Southeast governors a couple of days ago. And permit me, please, indulge me a little bit, because I want to read from the so-called communique that emanated, that was the result of that very meeting. Southeast governors rose from a meeting in Enugu on Tuesday and declared that they will do everything to end the sit-at-home order of the proscribed independent. Well, I am reading from a newspaper report, of course. That's a mistake. They have always been making that useless mistake of calling us independent people of Biafra. We are the indigenous people of Biafra. The indigenous people of Biafra. The deaf knows about, the deaf have heard it, even the blind sees that. So, but let me continue. They declare that they will do everything on the line to end the sit-at-home order of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra. The declaration is contained in a communique issued at the end of their meeting with stakeholders and made available to newsmen. The meeting was convened by the Ebonyi governor, Devil Umahi, and hosted by Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi of Enugu State. In that meeting, Umahi said, Umahi being the chairman of Southeast Governors, he said that the governors were worried by the spate of insecurity in the region and condemned the continued sit at home. Umahi also said the governors, Southeast leaders, security chiefs condemned the spate of killings in the region. He assured that the regional security outfit put together by the state in the region, the Bubago or whatever they called it, would be launched to give it teeth, and laws passed in all states to that effect before the end of 2021. The governors and leaders of the Southeast condemned killings in the region and have agreed to join hands with security agencies to stop the trend. Now again, I want to repeat this very paragraph. The governors and leaders of the Southeast condemn killings in the region and have agreed to join hands with security agencies to stop the trend. When you read this paragraph, what comes to your mind is Python Dance 1, Python Dance 2, Python Dance 3. And ironically, they have also started another form of their Python dance. And now, what is playing out here is that the governors once again are about to give official backing to another orgy of murder and killings of Biafran young men and women. That is how they start. That is their modus operandi. That is how they begin. They will gather together those who call themselves political leaders, those who are politicians in the Southeast, those who call themselves governors. What they do is that any time that their masters desires to drink blood, and they will bring one form of military exercise, in quote, in paper they call it military exercise, but we know what all these military exercises are for. They will bring them down in our land, and then they will meet. They will incorporate religious elders or religious leaders. They will incorporate traditional rulers and gather them once again, always in Enugu. And after their meeting, they will come out with useless communique, and that useless communique is always the sign off, the permission to the Janjaweed military terrorists in army uniform to begin another spate of killings and murder of our people. Imagine that those who call themselves governors, they gather together. In fact, if I read through their communique, they gathered together. There was no single point in that communique that actually dealt with the concerns of Biafrans in this region, Biafrans in these areas, in these states. There was no one. Their concern was that they want to, because their masters have been asking them, what are you doing with all, and why all these sit-at-homes are going on? They have no answer. And what they did, what they tried to do, was to see if they could somehow make that very peaceful sit at home that IPOB and Biafrans have been observing for time and time again. They want to turn it into an anarchous event. They want to make the world believe or see that the indigenous people of Biafra, this great movement that Onyendu Mazi Kanu is leading, that we are violent people. But thanks to Kwabiama, because the way that Ukike works is not the way that man works. Thanks to Kwabiama, because one of them who deliberately refused to be part of that last meeting they had on Tuesday, had a very, very cogent reason for not attending that very meeting. And what was his reason, or what is his reason? He said that the killings in Anambra State, and as we already told the world and told the Biafran people, that the killings in Anambra State, which climaxed in the brutal and barbaric murder of Dr. Akunyele, was actually a plan well executed by these politicians, many of them within Anambra State and the act leaders outside of Anambra State. They wanted to turn Anambra State into a war zone, because that is how they begin anytime that they want to do their election, their useless election every 4 years, that people are still not seeing that these bloodthirsty politicians are playing with their lives. Every 4 years, they will create anarchy in any place that election will hold, as a prelude, of course, as a prelude for what will come whether you voted or you did not vote. Now they want to make Anambra State ungovernable for the governor, and then they will bring in their army, because the election rigging that they carry out is what is always done with the army, not even the police. The army are the riggers of elections in the zoo. Now, their fear is this. They are afraid that if the Biafran people continue with their sit at home, and on the election day that there will be sit at home, then the army being in Biafra land will of course be a waste of resources, a waste of time, because you will not see anybody on the street, you will not see a goat, you will not see nothing on the street. Biafrans will be in their homes, and when they are in their homes, it makes it a little bit difficult for them to cause mayhem and, of course, to rig this election. That is why people who call themselves leaders, that is why they gathered in Enugu, the hallowed capital of Biafra land, to concoct their evil agenda and attempt to execute it. But I want to promise them that all of them who attended that meeting, all of them who acquiesced to that useless communique, you are setting yourself up against the spirit of Biafra land, the spirit that owns the land of Biafra. And we will call them up, and they will do what they will do for our land and for our people. In Imo State, Izombe, as we speak this today and tonight, is under siege. Izombe is under siege because the army has gone haywire. Who invited the army? The man, the froster, the usurper, the imposter that is occupying Ikonso house, that calls himself Supreme Court administrator. I don't even want to call you a governor, because you don't know what to govern. You're not a governor. You have no mandate to govern Imo State, not even a mandate to govern any local government. This very imposter, this very fraudster, is busy creating anarchy in Imo State. He is busy with the help of the Janjaweed terrorists in uniform. They are destroying people's property in Izombe. They are killing Biafrans in Izombe. These governors will never gather together to talk about the difficulties, those whom they claim that they are their leaders or that they are their governors. They will not talk about their welfare. They will not talk about their well-being. They will never speak in their favor, in anything that will be beneficial to them. They are using Biafrans to for their political, how will I put it now? They are to ensure that they still remain relevant in the politics of the zoo. That is what they use the Biafran people for, because they are not there for any of our interest. Look at what this devil Umahi did in Ebonyi, bringing one local government or one clan against the other to achieve his evil intentions and evil agenda. That is the two governors in Biafra land, Imo and Ebonyi. They want to bring in Anambra into the equation, the triangle, the heart of Igbo land. That is the sole agenda of the Janjaweed government in the zoo, and those who are helping and collaborating with them to bring the heart of Igbo land under the boot, under the control, under the oppressive rule of the caliphate, is none other than Devil Umahi and Hopeless Uzodema of Imo State. I want to remind our people that since the beginning of this struggle, of this movement, it was only last month when the impostor in Aso Rock wanted to come to Imo State, and we declared that Biafrans will not see him. Biafrans must sit at home. For the first time, the memo of the Directorate of State was forged by the fraudster in Imo State. And he forged that memo saying that the IPOB leadership have cancelled our sit-at-home order on the day that the impostor in Aso Rock will visit Biafra land. Biafrans must pay very, very, very good attention, very carefully, to what I'm saying tonight. Because when Oyendu was shouting and telling you people that this man is nothing but a hand-picked tool in the hand of the caliphate, you people will not believe it. He, with those who are working under him, they lifted away the order for the seat at home, and with my signature still there, the stamp of the DOA is still there, and put their useless cancellation of that seat at home. Now, fast forward again, some couple of days back, the same fraudster brought out another so-called press statement alleging that the IPOB communication officer, that is Emma Powerful, brought out this statement that the former SSG in Imo State has been appointed IPOB legal advisor. This same man is only showing what he knows how best to do. He ripped people off of their funds, of their money, before he even joined politics. And while he was in politics, he was still a 419er. And now they made him an administrator. They made him to usurp a position that he will never have dreamed about. He is still a fraudster, forging documents and telling lies that are from the pit of hell. Let me read further. They are useless communique. They said, we as well condemn the sit-at-home order by IPOB issued mostly by our people in the diaspora who do not feel the pains. My goodness me. Feel the pains. Which pains? Pains of the money that goes to your pocket, or pains of the Biafran people who have said they want to sit at home because their leader has been extraordinarily renditioned by the Zoo government in collaboration with many of you as governors. Which pain are you talking about? It continued. The meeting resolved that governors and people of the Southeast will do everything within the law to ensure that there is no further sit at home and people are allowed to move about freely. Umar, he said. The governor said the meeting received a report from Ohanes Ndibo, the flagship social cultural organization in the region, on various matters affecting the Southeast, especially on security and marginalization. Now you ask yourself, they received a report from Ohanes Ndibo. I believe, and I'm sure, and I know that this report was not just given to them, presented to them there at that very meeting. They received the report in advance, which ordinarily, if they were people who had the interests of their people at heart, they will have very, very holistically studied that report and will have made that report, or whatever it may be, that whatever may be its content, major issues to deal with or to have been dealt with in that very meeting. But listen what they said. He stressed that the governors will now study the report for immediate implementation and engagement with the federal government for amicable settlement of issues agitating the minds of the people, especially the youth. Did you hear that? He stressed that the governors will study. You know, and when politicians tell you that they will study a report, what they're telling you invariably is that they will put that report in the waste bin. They will just put it in the waste bin, because we know the history of reports upon reports that people with good intentions put together in the zoo for the government to put in place to study and implement, and they will tell you, we will study the report, and then we will implement it. So if the devil Omahi in Ebonyi State is telling Biafrans that report, I don't know what it contained anyway, but that report that Ohaneze gave to them, they are telling you here and now that they have put it in the dustbin because they will study it. And when they tell you they will study it, of course, you know what they mean by that, studying the report. The meeting agreed, I read further. The meeting agreed to support security agencies to restore peace in the southeast as well. Now hearing the big masquerade, as well as to support the November 6th governorship election in Anambra State to ensure a peaceful process. That was the agenda, the main agenda of that meeting. They have already brought in their foot soldiers in Biafra land. They have already brought in their military equipment in Biafra land. They are already preparing. They are preparing as we speak to turn Anambra State not only into a war zone, but to ensure that another fraudster will emerge after November 6th as governor of Anambra State, the heartbeat of Igbo land, the Omambala, where we all began as a people. They want to humiliate us as a people because it's like when a foreigner comes to your father's land or to your father's compound and sees the Imobi, sees the what we call the Obi, an outsider will come to see the Obi. He has not only humiliated your name as a person, he has not only humiliated whatever you believe in, he has attempted to spit on the grave and the spirit of the spirit that lead and guard the land. And I tell them that the spirit that guard Biafra land is ready and waiting for them. This battle that they are preparing, it shall be waged. It shall be waged, and Biafran people shall be victorious. That is the promise I make to you tonight. And like Oyende said, they will come to kill us. They will come with intention to emasculate us. They will come with the desire to eliminate our race, annihilate us. But at the end of the day, we shall win and we shall be victorious. One more paragraph I'll read. We commend all groups and the clergy for their efforts at interfacing with our youths. The meeting, therefore, mandated clergymen, the Christian Association of Nigeria, Ohanese and traditional rulers to continue to dialogue with youths in the region. Please, Biafrans, pay attention very, very carefully here. They commend all groups and the clergy, and they went ahead to mandate clergymen, the Christian Association of Nigeria, and traditional rulers to continue to dialogue with youth in the region. This very paragraph, or these two very paragraphs, brings me to the next issue that I have to touch on this very night. Because the intelligence report reaching the leadership of this movement has exposed the plan by churches to turn their place of worship to political campaign grounds. The intel we have is that the churches in Biafra land, and I'm going to be very specific, the leadership of the Catholic Church, the leadership of the Anglican Church, the leadership of some Pentecostal churches in Biafra land, and especially in Anambra State, are being coerced, are being in every manner possible induced to turn their place of worship to political campaign ground. But I have one message. I have one message for the leadership of the church in Anambra State. The message is that they should go, they must go to read the French Revolution and understand the ignominious role of the church at that time. And they must know what happened to the church afterwards, after the revolution succeeded. The Biafran struggle movement, the movement for our emancipation, the movement to extricate us from the contraption called Nigeria, is an ongoing revolution. If you are a clergyman, if you are a traditional ruler, and you play into the hands of the politicians, if you agree that the politicians will use you, because that is what they do every 4 years. Many of you who call yourself priests, many of you who call yourself pastors, many of you who call yourself bishops, they come to your church. They come to your mighty buildings, places of worship, and you give them the platform. You give them the platform to make empty promises in the so-called house of God. You allow them, you collaborate with them to lie before the God you worship. January, the people will be suffering and smiling, and another 4 years, you will go back, they will give you what they will give you, and you will again be part of selling your people to the soul, selling the souls of your people, the well-being of your people to these bloodthirsty politicians. Now, why I'm touching on this point is that the Biafran people, especially in Anambra State, IPOB must not be held responsible if the churches in Anambra make themselves willing tools and willing collaborators for the continued emasculation of our people, for the continued subjugation of our people, and for the continued suffering of Biafrans in Anambra State. If the church makes themselves collaborators, they should go and read the outcome of the French Revolution. You must read it. And IPOB must not be held accountable when the people will rise against those who are part of the suffering that they have been put under for years and years and years. Devil Umahi and Hopeless Uzodinma, what the two of you, the assignment that was given to two of you to ensure that Anambra State is delivered, and now you are incorporating the churches. I can only tell you that what we as IPOB will do is that we are going to call upon the spirit that owns Biafra land to fight on our behalf. And they will fight for us. And what I'm going to tell you tonight again is that the IPOB should not be held accountable if the churches make themselves willing to in the subjugation of Biafran people, and the people show their anger against this collaboration. IPOB must not be held accountable. Dave Olomahi and Hopeless Uzodinma and the church hierarchy, the clergy, the priests, the pastors, all of you in the Anglican communion or the Anglican faith, whatever you call yourself, all of you in the Catholic Church, you will hold yourself responsible when the anger of the people shall let loose upon you. I will stop on this matter for now, but there is something very important I need to make known to people in Biafra land, and especially principal officers and the ESN operatives. Every ESN operative must, I repeat, must follow their commander on the ground. Every ESN operative, you have commanders, and you must, without question, without prevarication, you must follow the command or the order of your commanders on the ground. Therefore, as of this very night, this very moment, every contact with people not in the security structure of IPOB, in the security structure of the ESN, must cease tonight. It must cease tonight. All ESN operatives must return to their area of command and focus. You must focus on your core assignment. Your core assignment, which we know, as Oyendu set it out, must be reestablished. That core assignment, all of you know what it is. I don't have to say it here in the open. You must return and follow your commander and concentrate on your core assignment, because we want to make sure that when the anarchy will begin, which these people are setting up, they will not have any reason to blame the Eastern Security Network. They will not have any reason to try to rope in our volunteer command. Indiscipline amongst operatives must cease tonight. Indiscipline amongst ESN operatives must cease tonight. Any member, any operative who is found communicating with those in the diaspora henceforward will count himself no longer to be part of this very disciplined and energetic force. Now, I want to say that principal servants and family members, especially those in the United States of America, you must begin to exercise yourself. Cut off further contact. Cut off further communication with any expelled and dismissed former officers. I am saying this very, very slowly so that it will sink in. Remove yourself from any forum created by such expelled or dismissed former officers. Because after tonight, you will not say you were not told. After tonight, you will not say, I did not know. Now, those who are continuing in acts of insubordination, those who are continuing in acts of trying to deceive our people, if you have been removed, if you have been dismissed, if you have been expelled, don't take anybody down with you, because it's only those that you are bringing into your forum and communicating with. They are the only people who will suffer the consequence, because for you already you are down, so you need no fall. You don't need to fear any fall anymore. But I think I found it very important that I make this last broadcast, I'll make this last information, I make this last warning to those who still are in forums that were created by those who have been dismissed, because they are imparting indiscipline into you, and IPOB have no place for such nonsense. IPOB have no place for that kind of indiscipline. You know, what baffles me is when we see what happened or what is happening in Biafra land, and these people who call themselves politicians and whatever and governors, they will, when they see this evil going on and happening, they will be deaf, they will be dumb, and they will be blind. They will not see anything. They will not hear nothing, and they will not even speak anything. A very respectable Hollywood actor, a man that people respect a lot in Biafra land, Chinwetalu Agu. We saw how he was dehumanized. We saw how an elder statesman was I don't even know the word to use, by people that are not even as old as his children. And these people are full and janja with people. They can never treat their people the way they come into a land with impunity, because the governors have opened the door for them to come in. The governors have signed it off. Devil Umahi and Hopeless Uzadima defrosted. They have told them, come in. You have our acting. You have our back. Nothing is going to happen to you. And they will come to our land, disgrace and dehumanize those whom we respect. For what reason? What did Chiwetalago do? A man, it has become a crime to wear your choosing attire in Biafra land. Chiwetalago is not a member of IPOB. Chiwetalago is not campaigning for Biafra. What will anybody say that this man did for people to be dragging him on the floor? For the terrorists to be dragging him on the floor and no word of condemnation from these imbeciles masquerading as politicians and leaders in the hallowed land of Biafra. It is terrible. And we condemn that act in all ramifications. That you released him is not the issue. Who gave you the impetus in the first place? Who gave the authorization? Who signed off that this man must be harassed in the first place? A man that was doing charitable work to his people, you went and accosted him and began to treat him as a common criminal, pulling him on the ground. Who signed that off? And the governors are there telling us they want to stop sit at home. The idiot in the Allah. Mad people everywhere. Biafrans, on a very sad note, I want the leadership of the indigenous people of Biafra wish, and of course, the Biafran people generally, we wish to extend our heartfelt condolence to a real elder statesman in Biafra land, to a real father in Biafra land, somebody there to the heart of Onyendumazi Nnamdi Kanu. And I'm talking about Elder Mbazulike Amechi, who lost his wife very recently. We, the Biafran people, we mourn and condole you, our elder, because you are one amongst millions. We condole you because you stand on the right of the oppressed. You stand on the path of truth, and you do not fear to speak the truth to authority. Therefore, when we heard that your loved wife has joined our ancestors, it was a sad news indeed. But our solace is that she did not die. She merely joined our ancestors in the spiritual realm, And we believe and we know that she will continue amongst the spirits of our ancestors to fight for their children and help us extricate ourselves from these contraption, this dehumanizing environment called the Zoological Republic of Nigeria. Now, there is something that we must do, Biafran people, because somehow we have been contributing, we have been, in a way, bankrolling those who come as Fulani herdsmen to come and rape our women, to come and destroy our farmlands, to come and murder our youths, our elders, and our mothers who go about their duties, who go about their working, their farm work in our farmland. We must stop financing this tragedy that is happening in our land. And from tonight, for the next 6 months, I am calling on Biafrans who have the means to begin proper animal husbandry in Biafra land. And this animal husbandry must comprise the husbanding or the rearing of our local cows, our local goats, and our sheep. These were what we used to have before they began to import the Fulani cows, which after they have had sex with them, they will send it to us, diseased animals for us to consume and for us to die without knowing what was killing us. From tonight, the 8th day of October 2021, counting 6 months from now, 6 months from now, we will ban the consumption of Fulani cows in Biafra land. I said 6 months because we want to give our people the opportunity to go truly and seriously into the rearing of cattle in our land. And that cattle will be Efibo. That is what we call it. We will begin the rearing of Efibo in our land. And of course, the goats and the sheep that goes with it. Therefore, those of us in diaspora, now is the opportunity to create employment for our people. Now is the time to invest in Biafra land and invest in the keeping, in the ranching, if I use that word, in the ranching of our local cows and goats and sheep. Because after 6 months from today, there will be a total ban in the consumption of Fulani cows. And this ban will encompass using Fulani cows for any burial ceremony. This ban will encompass using Fulani cow for any marriage ceremony. This ban will encompass using Fulani cow for those of you who enjoy eating suya. It will also encompass using Fulani cows for making suya. Young people in Biafra land, you must go and learn. If you do not know how to make very sumptuous suyas, go and learn how to do it. That will also create employment. And our abattoirs in Biafra land, those markets where cows are being killed, you must, those of you who are selling cow meat, you must either join yourself together and begin the keeping of Igbo cows, and because after 6 months, you will not be selling Fulani cows in any market in our land anymore. The word is enough for the wise. Great Biafrans, we know that we are drawing very, very, very close to the last chapter of the Psalms. It is unbelievable Many of you have been very, very committed to this project or to this constant and daily intercession with heaven. I must commend all of you. And the journey is almost coming to a close. Therefore, I will enjoin you to continue in your reading of the Psalms. I will enjoin you to continue in the supplication to heaven on behalf of course, Onyendu, our leader, and for the Biafran people and for the restoration of Biafra. Additionally, however, we must do a very unique thing in Biafra land from tomorrow. Very, very important. Because Onyendu's court date is fast approaching. 21st of October is just around the corner. And everything must be done that has to be done to ensure that victory is ours and to ensure that our leader rejoins us very, very soon. Now, this is what we must do beginning from tomorrow, especially those in Biafra land. Every Biafran must go and get our local cola, not Hausa cola, not Yoruba cola, Ojibo. You must go and get Ojibo. And Ojibo that you will get must be the one that has four parts. Ojibo Bare no. Get it and get it well. You may get them at the same time, 4 of them, or you may get them on a daily basis. When you have your Ojibo, beginning from tomorrow, either in the morning or 12 noon, the day you will call upon the spirit that owns the land of Biafra. I said, Ojibo Bale no, meaning and symbolizing Eke, Orie, Afo, Nkwo. And then that Oji must be 4 kola nuts, full kola nuts, also symbolizing Eke, Orie, Afo, Nkwo. Tomorrow, I'm not sure what tomorrow is, whether it's Eke or Orie or Afo, but nevertheless, beginning from tomorrow, if tomorrow is Eke Day, you will bring 1 kola that has 4 leaves in it, four parts in it. Raise it up to heaven either in the morning or 12 noon. Call upon Chukwu Kikabiam, the spirit that owns the land of Biafra, the creator of all things seen and unseen. While you call him, ask him to raise the spirit of our ancestors to go ahead and prepare the ground for us as the day of Onyendu's court appearance draws closer. You will pray your prayer, asking for victory for our leader, asking for victory for Biafra, asking the spirits and Chukwu Okike to confound those in our midst whose hands are soiled in the blood of his children. and every other prayer that you can know or that you know is for the benefit of the Biafran people. That orgy, when you break it after your prayer and supplications, after calling on the name of Chukwuabiama, when you break that kola, it must, like I said, it must be 4, not 3 pieces. It must be 4 in one kola, 4 parts. Don't eat the kola, please. Don't eat the kola after you have finished your prayer. Lasalia, throw it away on the ground to the spirits. They will take it up, and Chukwuabiama will raise the army. He will raise the army that will fight on our behalf. He will also raise his mantle of judgment on the day of the court appearance of our leader. That is the first day. On the second day, if it is Ori, you bring another kola that has 4 parts. You call upon heaven, call upon Chukwuabiam, call upon the spirit that owns Biafra land, call upon our ancestors, and pray and commit Onyendu in their hands, and commit the ESN in the hands of Chukwuabiam, and commit our people also in Biafra land, those of you who are in the war front. Because Biafra land, as we speak, is a war front. Those of you who are there, we must commit you in the hand of Okike, that he may continue to strengthen you. On this second day, after your prayers, break the kola nut. Don't eat it, please. Throw the kola nut to the spirits. They will take it. And of course, Chukwuabiama will raise his army to fight our battle. On the third day, you do the same. Get a kola nut, Igbo kola nut, please. I repeat, that has 4 parts. Commit of the head of director, but without being able to do. Many of you may have questions which you wish to ask, but because we do not give the opportunity for questions and answers in my broadcast, these inquiry lines will answer your questions and properly direct you if you have any issues whatsoever. And this is only WhatsApp and Signal number. Now the number goes this way: +61 434 294 745 +61 434 294 745. The second one is +1 248 949 4843. I repeat, +1 248 949 4843. These two numbers are inquiry lines for the head of directorate of the Indigenous People of Biafra. And I want to make two announcements. This concerns the IPOB family in the United States of America. And it goes this way. New appointment, which after this, I will bring out a memo to make that much, to document this appointment that has been made or that is being announced tonight. Miss Linda Ndo has been appointed the Deputy Central Regional Representative of IPOB Central Region, USA. Miss Linda Ndo has been appointed the Deputy Central Regional Representative of the Indigenous People of Biafra, IPOB Central Region, USA. Mrs. Linda will be deputizing to our Central Regional Rep in the person of Mazi Samson Tukwemamamado. Mazi Samson, who is our Central Regional Rep, will be deputized by Miss Linda Ndo. And we have a new coordinator in Illinois. Our coordinator in Illinois is Mazi Ubuagu. Mazi Ubuagu has been appointed the new Illinois, IPOB Illinois coordinator, and their appointment take immediate effect from this very night. And like I said, I will bring out a memo to properly, officially document and publicize this very appointment. Great Biafrans, we must do what we have to do. I have to say something. I know a lot of people have been wondering, but there is nothing I have to add as far as Biafra land is concerned. As far as Biafra land is concerned, the Biafran people, we have repudiated, we have rejected every aspect of the oppressive presence of the zoo in our land. And this includes, like our leader said before, we are not part of any election in Biafra land. Election is nothing for us because it has never brought anything good for the Biafran people. So the whole of Biafra land, we are saying that what Onyendu has said initially is what we, the Biafran people, will maintain and implement. We must remain focused, we must remain firm, and we must remain at alert. They have come to deceive. They have come to destroy. They are more moving around as if they are sheep, but they are wolves in sheep clothing, and they're only looking for those that they will devour. While you're moving around in Biafra land, be at alert. Be aware of the environment. They have brought in killer squad in our land, and many of them are moving in mufti, causing mayhem, making mothers to be childless, making children to be fatherless and motherless. So everyone must be at alert, and everyone must be aware of his environment. But I can assure you that at the end of all this, we shall emerge victorious. We shall emerge victorious, and of course, all honor and glory shall be ascribed unto him alone, to whom honor and praise belongs to. Biafra for us is not just a name. Biafra is our identity. Biafra is our heritage. And Biafra is our religion. And it is only to him, Elohim, the creator of heaven and earth, to him who made what the eye can see and what the eye cannot see, what is beyond the comprehension of mere mortals. He whom we praise in our name, Chukwu Okike Abiyama Primheline, it is only him that is worthy of worship, and it is only him that we Biafrans worship, and him alone whom our ancestors worshipped. It is only before him that we can bow down, because we do not bow down before mortals, and we cannot bow down before any mortal. Irrespective of whatever difficulties they will think they can put us into, we cannot worship and we cannot bow down before a mortal. But Chukwu Abiyama, we will bow down before him all the days of our life, and we shall teach our children that he who delivered us out of this quagmire, who saved us from total destruction, it is only him that must be worshipped. I want to thank you all for listening this very night and this very morning or evening, depending on your time zone. And I want to commend and commit all of you into the hand of Elohim, that he may guide and preserve and protect all of you in your going out and in your coming in. May he envelop you with all his love and spirit. And may he make ways for you and for us where there is no way. Let the spirits in Biafra land rise up. From tomorrow, when we begin this process, we shall march ahead and victory shall be ours. From me, from here, I want to say to you, good night and sleep well. Thank you very much.
Africa. I know it will. Disputing that one. Right, so, Brother Justice, if you could introduce yourself and then you introduce the organization of what you represent there.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's a great honor to be in this studio. Thank our brother Kwame and brother Cecil for this invitation. My name is Justice Rukachi-Loisai. I'm the UK United Kingdom National Coordinator for the indigenous people of Biafra. Now, as Kwame said, Biafra is in Africa. Without getting too controversial, if you look in the ancient maps, even as far back in 1600s, you see the word or the area designated Biafra. So there's no argument about where Biafra is. Now, most of us understand it's also in Nigeria currently. And that's probably
in fact, that big sea area of Nigeria is actually called the Gulf of Biafra, isn't it? Long before Nigeria became a state.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there's a bite of Biafra, long before Nigeria became known as a country. And that's, so if it existed in the 1600s and Nigeria got its independence in 1960, so Biafra obviously existed before, but and the issue now is whether it's inside Nigeria or is Nigeria inside Biafra. I will let you go into that. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity and privilege to share what little knowledge I have on this huge nebulous topic. But if the process or the actual outcome is to help everybody understand the situation on the ground and also to help us as Africans to stop further bloodshed in that part of the world. We'll all be grateful. Thank you.
Okay, so give a brief history of the organization, represent?
Yes. IPOB, Indigenous People of Biafra, is an organization which is like a movement. A movement in the sense that it's in over 88 countries in the world. And this is occasioned because of the fact that most people who were indigenous to Biafra, which is part of the Nigeria, let's say for geographic location, have found themselves scattered all over the world. So you have people within the area of their indigene, which is Biafra within Nigeria and also the rest of the African continent. And there's a saying that where you don't find an Biafran, then that place is not safe. So we are really everywhere. So it's an organization which is like an umbrella group which try to unite them all to fight a common cause, which by implication, if we stabilize this part of Africa, the whole thing will spread to the rest of Africa. So we are in several countries. I happen to be one of the coordinators in the United Kingdom. So if you go to Germany, you find IPOB. If you go to France, you find IPOB, Ireland, and so on and so forth. But of course, the majority of people live in Biafra land itself. And this is what we're going to explore a bit further. Thank you.
And the common cause is, what's the aim of the organization?
Right. The aim is to have a peaceful restoration of a country we call Biafra, which, as I said earlier, existed way in the ancient days. And if we can restore it, then in a peaceful manner, because we've been through war, which I suppose we can talk about later, there's no need killing each other again to establish what you already have. So this particular organization is going for a peaceful agitation for the restoration of their sovereignty, which is Biafra.
And that means succeeding from Nigeria.
People call it seceding. Yeah, people call it seceding. When you use the word secede, it means you're going to, literally price yourself away. But in 1967, when that the first word was used to say Biafra, part of Nigeria, was seceding, it was with the understanding that you're a part of a country and you're forcing to go away from it. But if you have been pushed out from one part of the country and you return to your village, you can't be saying you seceded from your from other parts. From the way the world will look at it, as though you're pulling away. But the Biafran experience was that they were in other parts of Nigeria and they were pushed out of that. So nowhere else was safe until they got back to their own fatherland, as it were. And because of the rejection and all the efforts to have peace failed, they declared themselves as a separate part of the country, hoping that in so doing, they'll be left alone and no further bloodshed. Unknown to them, that declaration was a signal for Nigeria to say, well, we have this territorial integrity, you can't go out. So they killed them to kick them out, they killed them to bring them back in, and the killing is still going on. So the IPOB is trying to bring an end to all this killing.
Okay. Right. If you could give us a brief history, just may I assist briefly?
Yes.
You speak of the indigenous people of Biafra.
Yes.
Everybody knows that, in a way, it's Igbo land. So who else is there?
Okay. When we look at the whole map of, if you like, Nigeria, there's a section called Igbo land. The issues like, what's the best way to, you don't really know where the boundary is, because if you imagine Nigeria as an artificial creation, if you look at African map, it's in boxes, isn't it? So there's an artificial creation. So there's a portion of that artificial creation, which you call the Igbos live here. But they have neighbors like other tribes, like the Efik, like the Ibibio, the Ogojas, and so on. And you keep listing them. It's like if you move from one part of your village and go further down, they speak a slightly different dialect.
Yes.
But the way they see the worldview is similar. They have the same cultural identity and understanding. So it's difficult to price them apart. And the mistake people make, or the British make, is say, but you're Igbo and you want to colonize the next tribe. It's not like that. So there's a definite area through marriage, cultural acclimatization, they're actually one. They see themselves as one. So when Biafra was declared, it was an eastern part of Nigeria, which included not just the Igbos, although the Igbos are the majority. There are other tribes which obviously constituted the then Biafra declaration.
There's some people call it Igoni.
Now, there's a portion of this Biafra, it's also called Ogoni. That's a tribe, which is Ogoni tribe. Yeah.
So if they wanted autonomy from Biafra,
yes,
what would be your position on
Interesting, because Biafrans, they have in their head it's autonomy. You can't force them to do what they don't want. So every single tribe that makes
let's call them people.
Because the tribe is very nebulous.
They're not just nebulous, it's a kind of negative European notion.
Indeed. So I'm glad you mentioned that. So every group of people that constitute that geographic space, if they want to have their own autonomy, that's welcome. There's no. The thing is, autonomy is because we are being suppressed majority of the time. It's due to people being marginalized or discriminated against, and they want their own autonomy. But all these communities actually are fractionated. Even in the Igbo land, they have different communities which are fractionated. And that is what makes it difficult to appreciate the Igbo. They have this concept that the Igbo don't have a king, or Igbo something like that, which means they don't have one person central and say, I want you to do this. So because each community has its autonomy, so it's inbuilt in their system. And as a result of that inbuilt autonomy, if there's an issue, a village will nominate someone to go and talk on their behalf. And after that discussion, that ends there. You don't carry on representing them. So when the British arrived, they find it very difficult to deal with because they want to talk to who's in charge. There's no one who is in charge. And that's a different concept for everywhere else they've been to. But other parts of Nigeria, they do have something like a ruler, an emir, and they can talk to them who then filtered information down. In the Biafran setting, you don't have this overall ruler. So every village is autonomous. So the Goni people will be autonomous. The Efik are autonomous, and so on. And the combination of all this makes what we call United States of Biafra.
Okay. So that's what the juridical entity, the new state.
That's right.
Very old, but
Yes.
now new in the international scene.
Indeed.
Would be.
Yes.
It'd be a United States of
Yes.
Biafra, or United Peoples of Biafra.
Absolutely.
All right. We know that there was a civil war in the 60s,
Yes.
and I was around, so I know just how brutal and awful it was. I don't know if it was before your time.
I was in it.
There you go. All right.
As a child, I survived it.
Right, so you know better than me. All right. So one of the things that I think people have to understand is how that came about, how that actual war
Yes.
between, as it were, the northern part of Nigeria and the western part of Nigeria fighting together to keep the eastern part of Nigeria in a state then called Nigeria, actually still called Nigeria. So how did that come about?
Okay, before you go to that, what I wanted to give a brief history of the area today known as Nigeria.
Yes.
Like who was the people in there before, and what contribution did they make towards human development?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a much nebulous. Fine. So the geographical space, I'm glad you used the term, geographical space called Nigeria, came about by, slowly accumulating territories by the British government. What happened was that when the scramble for Africa, basically we all know about slave trade.
Yeah.
When that ended, when they got enough, I'm coming to it. Because the slavery occurred, then they stopped taking human capital out of Africa. Now they come back into the African, they had to now, because they used to collect human slaves at the coast. They couldn't go inside because they don't know quite what's going on. So people used to be brought to them at the coast. So when slavery ended, they now have to find a way of getting more resources. So this is the beginning of colonization. Now, all those countries were not, there's no hard fixed boundary, which you can say, this country, I want to now come and colonize you. So they did it by stealth, gradually trading. So the French were coming, the British were coming, so they were actually fighting among each other. And the European being Europeans, they came they went to Germany and sat on a table and carved up Africa like a turkey. Yeah. So the reason why Nigeria
or a fish.
Fish. So they had a dinner. They had a dinner party. So they said, all right, you want the leg bit? I'm sticking to my chicken. You want the leg bit? Okay, we'll give you the leg bit. I'll take the arm, I'll take the chest or whatever. You understand? So to stop the Europeans fighting among each other. So when it came to Nigeria, the French were coming from the north and from the west. And then the British sneaked in from the coast and went up to confront the West and to confront the French. So there was, therefore, a deliberate ploy by the British. They started trading at the coast and they gradually moved up to the north. So unknown to them, there was in the north what we call an established empire, which is Islamic. And they were coming down to the south coast. They were coming down to move Islam all the way down to the southern coast. And if you like, in West Africa, is that eastern part, which became Biafra, that hasn't been Islamized. So there was an intention to bring Islam down south coast. So the British met it.
And much of the West wasn't Islamized either,
Yes,
the Yoruba people.
Indeed, they were half and half. So they met this, the British met this intended conquest, if you like, head on, to stop them coming down and taking more slaves. There was a fight to stop that. So the British, under a soldier, a colonial soldier called Lugard, sent his military to try and conquer the all-conquering Islamic forces. They were very, very upset with that because they thought if the British wasn't there, they would have conquered the whole country. So we have to bear that in mind. But the British conquered the north because the north was conquered by the Fulani, a tribe called Fulani. I'm going to quickly introduce them. A people called Fulani who took on the indigenous people called the Hausas in the northern part of Nigeria. And they subdued them and also sent what they call the emirs. Each town the area they conquered, they had a Fulani person ruling it.
A kind of a big chief.
Indeed. So they call it emirs. Now, those emirs confronted the British, and British conquered them because the people the emirs conquered, the houses, they didn't like to be conquered by the Fulanis. So it was easier for the British to conquer the Fulanis, if you imagine what's going on. So the British conquest of the Fulanis was easier than they would have admitted if the whole of the north was behind and fighting the British. So the British said we had the Maxim, the machine gun, so it was easier for them because you have this. Anyway, so they conquered the northern Nigeria where the Fulanis were predominant in ruling. And then the Fulani played, so right, okay, you conquered us, we understand. In fact, Lugard himself said, by the same authority you used to subdue the houses, we're using it to subdue you. So, but what they did was to allow them to carry on ruling that part.
Indirect rule is called in the book.
So that's a very, very strange thing. You conquer them and say, but you can carry on ruling as you have been ruling, but we are in charge now.
It suited the British very well.
It suited them because they didn't have the manpower to administer the whole area. They used the indigenous people who are ruling it to maintain that. So that is up in the north. That's obviously a huge geographical area. But when it came to the south, it was a slightly different scenario.
First happened before that.
It happened before that because in order to get to the north, you have to come from the south. So they bombarded a place like Lagos with a naval gunship, and those ones just caved in because they can't really fight naval gunship. The British had a mighty navy. They conquered the east as well, and they merged east with the west. So they now and called it Southern Nigeria or Protectorate. I don't know who they're protecting. So they call it Southern Protectorate. And the Southern Protectorate were merged as a result of Lagos, the west and the east. Remember, the capital was originally in Calabar, which is in the east. And I'm sure my brothers in West Indies are nearby Calabar School and so on.
We have a college in Jamaica by that name.
Calabar. So it's actually indigenous to that part. So therefore, you had the southern part with Protectorate, then merged with the northern part which has been conquered, which became the Nigeria. So you have the Southern Protectorate merged with the Northern Protectorate in 1914. This is when all this happened.
Let's get back to that. I think that my brother Kwame was asking something else. Before all of that, the area that we call Nigeria has a culture, and it's very impressive. It's the first place outside of Egypt. It's the first place that excited me because it has Benin and Ife and Igbo Ukwu and all of that wonderful and Nok and all of that. I think when he said, what is his contribution to human culture? That perhaps is what he was asking you to talk about. So if you
phenomenal contribution. Phenomenal contribution. I suppose the Benin culture, for example, if you go to the bronze, they are really masters of it. And what the British did before they merged into Southern Protectorate, the Benin culture had their own military. They resisted the British invasion force.
400 years.
And then British then sent an expedition force to totally wipe them out.
1896 or 97.
Indeed. And as a result of complete destruction of the Benin Kingdom, they grabbed all the artifact and brought it to the British. In fact, I think 2 days ago, I read somewhere saying, we want our statues back.
The Nigerians have been asking for that for the longest while. They offer to loan it. They say it's dangerous to hand it back. You don't have you don't have the right condition there to protect it. All kind of arguments. They say we didn't really steal it with legitimate
we captured it. We found it. So it's the same thing as the Greek marble.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the culture, when you look at them, the intricacy of it is phenomenal. I personally saw an exhibition many years ago when I was at university, when they came to London, of the artwork. And we mentioned Benin. We also, when it comes to the eastern part, they also had this amazing, delicate exhibition, the pot with the weave, right? They also had that you can really appreciate the advance in their culture. Then in the north, they also had their own Islamic way of doing things. So the Nook culture was also, we're talking centuries ago. But
it's actually more than centuries.
The ancient times,
the foundation culture, the earliest thing that the archaeologists talk about is the Nok culture, and it's now agreed that it can date it back to about 1000 BC.
Absolutely.
So we're not talking about centuries. We're actually talking about millennia. We're talking about 3 millennia of a continuous culture that has connections.
That's right.
In artistic material that uses bronze, that uses ivory, that uses wood, which doesn't last very long, and that also uses baked pottery, which does last very long if it's not in wet conditions.
Absolutely.
So we actually have, because all of this stuff is preserved, evidence of the quality of that cultural connection and reality that does in fact go back 3,000 years.
And you also have pyramids built in a place like Udi in the eastern part. There are pyramids which most people don't know about. So to talk about what have they contributed, it's not just in that culture. Their music, their artwork, and of course the history. You only need to listen to some of their languages. Some of us have certificates put in the drawer, but those people, their wisdom in their idioms will make you understand they were really advanced cultures.
And speaking of the language, one of the fascinating things is that the Hausa, who the Igbos may not particularly like, I don't know, but the Hausa have this wonderfully, I'm sure it's not actually more intricate than anybody else's, but the Western linguists regard it as a phenomenally complicated and impressive language. There's a reservoir of all kinds of cultural stuff. And they've suddenly decided that it's not really an African language at all. Because every time something of cultural that they recognize as of cultural significance is found in Africa, it cannot be African. So I think on this program we were saying a few weeks ago, so the Hausa language, because of its riches, is not African. The Ife bronzes, which were rediscovered in the early 20th century. The first one in 1910, and then a whole set of them in Ife, in the Olokon Grove, as you probably know, in the 1920s. Once that stuff was discovered, clearly, artistically, it's on a match with ancient Egypt and with ancient Greece. They don't talk about ancient Egypt. They say that the Greeks must have come across the Mediterranean, come across the Sahara, come another 1,000 miles down across the grassland and the forest, and taught these Africans how to do this stuff. Even though, in point of fact, Greece's flowering is 500 or 600 BC, and we now know that the Nok stuff is at least 500 years older, and probably even older than that. So it makes no sense at all. And they do the same thing with Great Zimbabwe. Great Zimbabwe is this phenomenal monument, probably 13th century, and they get there, they see it, and it cannot be African. So I have a little book. The title of it is the Arab builders of Great Zimbabwe, and they have these people in Arab dress who they're saying went all the way down the Indian Ocean, and then how far up into Africa is Great Zimbabwe? It's at least 1,500 miles, probably 2,000 miles. Africa is vast, and they say that these people left from wherever in the Arab world they came from. Leave aside the fact that the Arabs are actually mostly black people, but leave that aside, and come down, get up in the middle of Africa, and build this thing. And the problem with that one, there's so many problems with it, is that although Great Zimbabwe is the biggest of these stone cities, in fact, the Mashonaland, which is effectively where they are, that includes part of Zimbabwe and part of Mozambique, is full of stone cities, as I think I was saying on this program a few weeks ago. So that's what we find. They cut off the north of Africa and say that's not Africa. And then even when in the now Africa south of the Sahara, sub-Saharan Africa, put it sub, it must be inferior. And then you find stuff there. How do you explain that these people who are supposed to be primitive, non-creative, have done stuff? So the explanation is that they really didn't do it. The Portuguese helped the Benin to make their bronzes, or the Greeks helped their predecessors to the people of Ife to make their bronzes, or they don't bother to know that those people were part of a tradition that stretched back before Greece. Leave aside the Egyptian connection or the Ethiopian connection. Yeah,
absolutely, because the Herodotus, who's known as a Greek historian,
he was indeed.
If he's the father of history, he wrote about Africa.
Yes.
So you can be a father of history, writing about history that's already been made.
Yes.
So everything African, like the building of pyramids, all the advanced technology, they always try to find it impossible to attribute it or to ascribe it to black people.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the bottom line.
Absolutely.
So the civilization is for them to see and acknowledge they actually belong to black people.
Yes.
And they try everything to denigrate. I think it was Napoleon who chopped up the nose of the Sphinx.
Yes.
Because he couldn't believe.
Then he shot it off.
So that for him, it can't possibly be black nose. You know, it can't. So to answer your question, civilization in Africa, wherever you look, you find there were more pyramids, weren't they, in Sudan?
Yes, absolutely. Than in Egypt. Absolutely.
So people don't say that. So the black people, they were, from point of view of contribution to civilization, they're highly advanced. And the Renaissance they talk about in France.
We invented human culture first, and then human civilization. Everything that they call civilization. Literature, music, the arts, medicine, scientific technology, and so on. All of that starts in Africa.
So what they did was to conquer Egypt and burn all the books that will support. But the hieroglyphics, all the writing is still there for them to see.
Let's just look briefly at that burning process before. Right. So, and it's legitimate, because what we're really talking about is African contribution to world civilization, and we're focusing on Nigeria, but it connects the whole of the continent. So that burning process, it doesn't start with Napoleon. When the Greeks arrive and conquer Egypt, they collect up Egyptian books that are scattered. Scattered is the wrong word, that are located in the temples throughout Egypt. So they scatter them up and they put them in a library in Alexandria. And people talk about this as a Greek library. Nothing Greek about it. Greeks never had any books to put in no library. They've been writing for about 400 years by then, and most of the stuff that they've written was stolen, imitated, whatever from ancient Egypt. So all of this stuff gets collected up in effectively two different entities in Alexandria and so on. And then the Romans arrive and the burning process starts. There's either an accidental or a deliberate fire at the time of Mark Antony in that war between him and Mother Caesar. The stuff the stuff that takes place around
it could be Pompeii, Alexander.
Around what the Queen did name?
Queen Cleopatra.
Queen Cleopatra, exactly so. And so the burning begins then.
Yes.
And then the Arabs arrive,
Yes.
and they do some burning.
Yeah.
And before the Arabs, the Christians who don't like this heritage of pagan, because Jesus is not celebrated in it, they burn some of that stuff. And so the burning, the destruction and stealing thing has been going on for at least 1,000 and 1,100 and something years. Horrible stuff. Yeah.
So there's a lot you can say,
Yeah.
the contribution. So if it doesn't matter where you go in Africa, when you look hard enough, you find advanced civilization.
Yes.
But the West will say, oh, it must have come from alien culture.
Yes.
It must have come from outside. And that's really where we are.
And the on the burning stuff, that because in addition to Egypt, Ethiopia, and that Northeast Africa being a real residue of African civilization, you also have stuff that develops in the north of Nigeria, in places like Senegal, just to the north of Senegal, Mali, and Timbuktu, all of that. They are full of manuscripts. Most of the manuscripts are in Arabic, but not at all exclusively in Arabic. And most of it is still there, or if not most, a whole heap, gigantic amounts of manuscripts that contain all kinds of knowledge is still there. And those people who don't like indigenous African language, even if it's in African knowledge, even if it's in their language, because they're Arabic. So right now, Islamists are busy in Mali, in Timbuktu. The French are trying to stop them. God knows why the French are trying to stop them. And the UN. I see why the UN is trying to. But that burning process happening, because, just as in Afghanistan, there's some Islamic barbarians, and they destroy stuff that's non-Islamic because they see it as, well, just not Islamic, and therefore not in praise of Allah. And it doesn't matter how old it is, it doesn't matter whether it predates Allah and Islam or not. They set about to destroy it, and a lot of that is happening in the Sahel, just to the south of the Sahara right now. So these processes are alive and still damaging our culture, historical
and our headache now is those who have been privileged to read a little bit is to make sure our people understand all this.
Absolutely,
So
yes.
The history belongs to history books, but we're going to bring it alive. It's the knowledge we impart to the next generation that's important, to empower them to realize, hang on, what's this about Africans being inferior? That's not right. And that's really the message I want to say. So I don't know if that's
and just one last point about that before we return to modern Nigeria.
Okay.
This burning and destruction and denial, this cutting off of the north of Africa, of Egypt, and saying that it wasn't African, wasn't black. That serves a real function, right? Because when the Europeans arrive in India or in China, which they did, or in Japan, or even in Mexico, they see and acknowledge at once that they are in the presence of old, deep culture. You don't want to do that in Africa, but there is evidence of that also in Africa. So what they do is deny the African nature of what they discover there. So when you talk to an Indian or a Chinaman, he knows that I belong to a culture that has all this ancient books and artifacts and so on. When you talk to an African, because of what the Europeans have done to us, we don't know how rich our culture is. We don't know that we're at the head of Africa, of world civilization. We don't know what our ancestors have done. And we believe what they throw at us, that we're nothing and have never done anything, which history's largest ever lie, right? Just as the enslavement of our people is history's largest monstrosity. The Jews are trying to tell us that the Holocaust is the worst thing that happened in history. Not a thing of us. What happened to us is by far eons more than what happened at the Holocaust. This is not to approve the Holocaust in any way or to deny it, but it's small beer in comparison to what happened to us. And yet we, because of the power of their media, because of our own. Much of this stuff we've been able to know for something like the last 2 centuries. There have been individual black people who are writing this stuff, and it's there in the book. But we don't bother to learn it because we don't get told that it's there. We don't know that's important, and we listen. Our young people listen to all kinds of stuff. I listened to Michael Jackson. You just played with Michael Jackson, and I didn't understand a word of it. To be absolutely to be absolutely honest, and that's what our young people are listening to, right? And sometimes there's stuff there, but mostly there's next to nothing there. And the places that they could go for real knowledge of us, of our history, of our contribution to humanity, of indeed of our making of humanity, the people of them don't know because they don't have any way of accessing it.
Yeah, so that's partly why, if you have a stable country, and Biafra would be one of those, it will respect these cultures. It will explain to our people, particularly in the diaspora, what has happened. There be accuracy without necessarily banting about, being melodramatic about what's happened to us. There will be events, there'll be lecture, there'll be, if you like, an explanation of who we are. And Biafra, when it was there for 2.5 years, demonstrated
Centuries.
2.5 years.
Oh, the state.
67,
Yeah, okay.
67 to 70, during its war, it demonstrated its ability to innovate when it was totally impossible to innovate. Some Europeans are around and say, this is the first place we've been to in Africa where the blacks are doing everything. So they were shocked at the amount of what they were able to do. So civilization had been there, but we need to mine it and have stable countries in Africa which will actually show it. So people from abroad will come in and see for themselves. Until we have stable countries, it's going to be difficult to do that.
So return now then to what you were telling us about, which is the making of Nigeria, say in the 19th and 20th century.
So it was therefore a colonial construct in the sense that you had these indigenous cultures embedded prior to the arrival of the Europeans who were scrambling for mineral resources and had to acquire wealth to run their industries. So Nigeria, therefore, was put together, what we call an agglomeration of divergent cultures. In fact, the person who put them together, Loduga, said, water and oil can't mix. They know that the type of cultures that were in their different, if you like, peoples, although they intermarried, they looked after, they were never at war. They were not industrialized killing of one tribe or the other. They intermarried, they traded. So all these things, but they had a different, distinct identity. Now, so
what
Nigeria,
what did Lugard mean when he talked about water and oil not mixing?
because he realized from the north, the Muslim way of doing things is different from the. Remember, I said to you, they had somebody who could rule and tell them what to do. Whereas in the south, in the east, they have some stubborn people like myself who, if you want to tell them what to do, you have to call a meeting.
But another part of
when you call a meeting, then people sat down and discussed what you're bringing to them to do, whether it's to the advantage or not. So as a result, there were two different people. The British could tell the North what to do, and they do it straight away. They can try and impose it in the East, and it wouldn't work.
Right. I have a question that arises from something that you said earlier, which I know independently, which is that you also said that the Biafran War in effect started because there had been a process by which Biafrans who were everywhere in what was then Nigeria were killed and pushed back into Nigeria.
Pushed out of Nigeria.
No.
Pushed out of Nigeria, back to their part, and then killed to bring back.
Okay. So I think we're agreeing. I might be saying it differently, but in effect, what I heard you saying, and I know this to be true, that people from eastern Nigeria were living in the north, they were living in the west. That there came a moment when the place in the north of Nigeria called the Sabangari, it was a district in one of the big cities, where there's an attack on them and very many thousands were actually killed in that process. So what I'd like you to address briefly is how it came to be the case that those people from the east
Yes.
were living in those numbers in the north.
Absolutely. It's a very, very pertinent question. Now, as I said, the British went there and united water and oil together. So you say to the northern people, we're going to rule you by indirect rule. Yeah? But indirect rule means you have their own way of running their countries and affairs in place. They say, oh, you're a Muslim, yes, but can we bring Christianity to you? Say, no, you can't. We have a Muslim. How about schools? No, Islamic schools. How about catching up with the modern world? No. We do it at our own pace. Down south, what happened? I'm answering your question. Why did you have such a problem number?
I'm in agreement with you. I think I understand where you're going.
So down south, Christianity arrived. They say, God sent us. They say, we know God. What's the problem? He sent you. We might actually believe you. God may have sent you. And what is it you can offer us? Oh, okay, schools. So one village will build a school, and the next one say, this thing is good. We better build ours. So there's a competition. To cut a long story short, down south part of Nigeria.
Don't cut that story short. It's very important.
Okay. Yeah. So the reason I'm going that way is that there was an assimilation of the Western ways of doing things. Because after fighting the British and the British conquered them, they said, what have you got to offer us? Okay. What about churches, schools, and so on? So communities started developing. And what I'm going to say, cut a long story short, because of time, you end up having something like 800.
Sorry, we can come back next week.
You got to explain this properly. You have something like 841 secondary schools, let's say, down in the south. This is pre-independence.
Yes, I know.
Compared to nearly about 42 in the north. But the north is vast. The size of Western Europe. So if you have in the down south, I'm talking both in the Yoruba West and also in the East, a vast amount of secondary schools, but in those days it's quite rare. They were able, therefore, to produce those who can write, who can therefore do administration for the British government, which were needed in the north. So therefore, they went up north to run the trade, the post offices, and all the things. Now, you mentioned the word Sabongari before. For the benefit of the listeners, Sabongari is a place where if you arrive in the north, because you're not a Muslim, they will not allow you to live inside their walled city. You lived outside the walled city because visitors' quarters called Sabongari. Now, Sabongari therefore occupied by those who came from the southern part. And in the Sabongari, they were called privileged pariahs because they were actually doing the work and getting money from the Europe, in other words, they were earning salaries, sending their
servants of colonialism in effect.
So they're benefiting, they're having cars, having shops. Meanwhile, the indigenous people were saying, hang on, they've come to our land and they're taking over our jobs. You can imagine where this is going. So they began to restrict them. You're not allowed to own, lands. If you do, we'll rescind it. And there's so much so that they said, if we don't take any plan to stem this flow, we're going to be swamped. So their premier said,
must be related to Margaret Thatcher.
The jobs, well, he was knighted. So he said the jobs has to be a northerner first. So you have people from the south who go to the north to try and run the whole country in the north. And if the northerners who were administering the northern part of Nigeria as a separate entity on behalf of the British via what they call the native administration, they can only appoint you if you're a northerner. So they call it northerner first. So if you have any of theirs who has qualified, he gets the job. If you're then a foreigner, someone, an expat, that's the exact word, an expat, someone from outside Nigeria will get the job number 2, and any other part of Nigeria Yeah, we get 3 before an Igbo person from the east gets the job, because you think the Igbos, all you have to do is put them in a job, and before you know it, they're taking over. So there was this enmity about those who went off from the southern part to the northern part to help to develop what was then the Nigerian Federation.
Yeah. So I want to ask another question, because I know that in the making of the Civil War, that's important. The officer class in the Nigerian army was also was also substantially from the south, and particularly Igbo. As the place became independent.
I'm building the civilians, and then we bring the army.
All right. Okay.
So the civilians were in, if you like, most of the people who went up north to set up their own motor, spare parts business. They were appeared to be flourishing, and as a result, they attracted more people from their own part, the country, so much so that there was an approach when all the killing started, in the tune of between 1.8 to 2 million people outside the eastern part of Nigeria that had to run back to their own part. So there's a huge number, but it's really dwarfs into insignificance when you compare to the population in the north. So, but what was then happening was Nigeria, because of the people in the south who were pushing for independence, the northerners said, no, we're not ready for independence. So there was a mismatch whereby a whole country like Nigeria that could have become independent earlier were being dragged back because people in the north, because of their own way of seeing things or doing things, they weren't training enough people from the northern part who would then administer that part. So they felt they'd be disadvantaged if they had independence earlier. So much so that Nnamdi Azikiwe mentioned
independence means southern rule, just as in the Caribbean, Mr. Bustamante said independence means brown man rule.
There you go. So they didn't want to replace the British colonialism with southern colonialism. Okay, so that was an issue for them in a big time. So the Nigerians were trying to get the British to leave so they can begin this process of African decolonization. So, and there were people like Nnamdi Azikiwe who had Pan-African view. The Pan-African view. So
who
that
was he?
So Nnamdi Azikiwe is from the eastern part, is an Igbo person. Now, but it is more Hausa. He was actually born in the north. In 1904. So he was born there, a place called Zenguri. So because his father was a clerk and so on, so he was born up there. And he realized that very, very early that in order for Africans to be emancipated, you have to be well educated to confront
in the
British.
Western way.
In the Western way, to confront the British. So he, along with his friends, stowed away the ship. They were going to America. They didn't care. So one of his friends became seasick, and they were told that you better throw them overboard, so that otherwise they decided no, they're going to disembark in Accra in Ghana. When they were chopped off the boat. So, and then he started to work as a laborer, and the message got home that to his father and his parents that he ran away. He's now living in Ghana. So then he was brought back, and his father said, here's my pension money, let's do this properly, go to America. So he went to America, he worked as a boxer at the coal mine, trained himself, Lincoln University, got a master's degree in the 30s. Now this is unusual. And at one stage in his quest to help Africa free, he actually was lying before a train line to kill himself. He was fed up the whole thing. He managed to get his head together. And went back to Africa. Now, at that time, they started by going to media and popularizing the need to free the African mind. So the idea is to restore the dignity of black man. So he was in the forefront.
Was he influenced by Garvey in any way?
Yes, he had Garvey's interest that had to hold Africa unite together. So the reason why he's significant in this discussion is because he was the one leading, along with others, to try and free Nigeria from British colonialism.
Yeah. By the way, he has an autobiography just called ZIK.
Yes, called Zik.
Yeah, that people should find and read.
Excellent.
Yeah.
ZIK is an abbreviation of Nnamdi Azikiwe. He changed his name from Benjamin to Nnamdi because he wanted to represent his country in an Olympics by himself. He was a boxer, he's a sprinter, he's a runner, he's a footballer, he's everything. He's a proper athlete. And they said, no, you can't represent your country. You haven't got a country. So he was so angry. So he decided he's no longer going to be called Benjamin. From now on, his name is Nnamdi. Which is, by the way, the name of the current leader of IPOB, called Nnamdi. So if you like, this is the first Nnamdi. We gave the
number one.
Nnamdi one. So Nnamdi Azikiwe was therefore, along with other members in Nigeria called Awolowo on the west, they were trying to unite.
Who also has an autobiography.
We're coming back. We come back. So they were trying to set the Nigerian people free from colonialism. The problem was the methodology. Mix water and oil not mixing meant some part of the country weren't ready. The British told the Azikiwe, because he was one of the prime agitators, there are three parts then to Nigeria then, the northern, the eastern, and the western at that time. We're talking the 50s. The British told them, if two of you out of three want independence, we will give it to you. So Nigeria could have been independent before Ghana. Nnamdi Azikiwe, having been to America, thinking Pan-African, it says, and we're United States of Africa. So if two of us, the East is ready, the West is ready, I'm talking Eastern and Western part of Nigeria then, they call them region in those days.
Yes, they did.
These guys are ready, but the North is not ready. We will wait for them. And the North said, we'll only come and join you guys if you give us 50% of the vote that's going to be. So they were rigging from the beginning, setting the pace to say, we could only join this independent movement if you give us 50% of the vote. So, and then the remaining 50, of course, going to be shared between East and West. So you can imagine a federation where preponderantly one side has more majority. So
did they have the population base, or was that a lie?
Now, the population is interesting. If you look at the whole of West Africa, there's only one part in that West African where more people seem to live in the north in Nigeria than in the west. And so than in the southern part where it's more populated. And also if you look at population density, it's more on the eastern part, but now using satellite imagery. Outside the Nile Valley, there are no more greater population density than the eastern part of Nigeria. So they believe that the population census was rigged to give the impression there are more people living in the north than in the south, where there are a huge number of people. So the population...
There's all kinds of problems with that census, isn't it? Because the north, even though it wanted to claim population preponderance, big numeric numbers, they didn't want the women counted. Because they're in... You're not supposed to
You can't go inside somebody's house and count the women. It's not done.
So we don't know how they arrived at these numbers at all, because there's all kinds of problems with I remember that.
So they knew the population census was rigged. In fact, when Nigeria became independent, I believe 1962-63, there's another recount. And there was all sorts of figures churned out, so much so that made the Igbos vulnerable, because the person ruling the Igbo part of the eastern part of Nigeria said they didn't believe the census result from the north. His name is Dr. Opara. So he became an enemy of the north, because the north said, we have more population, what's your problem? So they were already fighting, because the reason why they're fighting about population is that the greater your number, the more you share the cake. It's a federal thing. So going back to why the war came, so you therefore have a huge number gone up to the north to help develop Nigeria, but they began to have resentment because their presence in the north, first of all, they're not Muslim. Secondly, they appear to be more, if you like,
enterprising.
And from the other people, they appear to be more aggressive because they're taking over our jobs, which they are not qualified to do in the first place. But rather than allow them as Nigerians, they wanted other people outside Nigeria to have the job rather than them. So there was, if you look at the answers of the parliamentary debate in the northern part of Nigeria, it's all about how to get rid of the Igbos. This was in the 40s and the 50s.
Okay.
So that was really the genesis of the war we're coming to, because there was an inbuilt discussion about how do we deal with the Igbos. Well, don't give them stores, don't give them land, don't give them, make sure that they're not in position of authority. The position of authority in the north was ruled by the northern native authority. So you can't even, so they were able to start plotting and planning how to contain the Igbos who are living in Sabongaris. Now, you mentioned the military.
Yes.
So the goings on, so Nigeria managed, to get its independence in 1960. I'm not sure if I'm going too quickly.
No.
So Nigeria managed to get its independence in 1960 after the delay and the dragging of the fleet from the north.
Yes.
So the Nnamdi Azikiwe and the people who are trying to get Nigeria freed from colonial Britain through boycotting, through basically they used superior argument. There wasn't any fighting or killing like in the Kenya scenario. The Nnamdi Azikiwe, with all his knowledge and so on, was able to put together ideas that Nigerians are ready to rule themselves. They have the capacity. They had, in fact, they got everything going for them. They had intellect. They had enough people who were intelligent enough to come to UK and argue their own independence. They were just being held back by a group because they wanted to manipulate them. So anyway, to cut that long story short, it just so happens that when independence was coming, the Britain was in the meanwhile building up the north. Yes, making sure when you hand over this independence, you're giving it to the people who can do business with you. So that mentality is that rather than give it to the people who are able to run the ship that was Nigeria, we give it to some people who are our friends, who will listen to whatever we say. So the problem with the black man is that you need to be able
but in the beginning you said it was the South.
Yes.
That was the the Britons because they accepted schools and religion. But now you're saying it's
please repeat that.
I said, earlier you're saying that it was the South that was a friend of the British because they accepted school and religion.
Not friends.
Not friends.
Not friends.
They grabbed what the
West had to offer
because it's to their own advantage. So they were the ones who building schools in their own parts, generating enough people who can read, to run post office and schools, and therefore they weren't really British friends. This word Boko Haram, I'll touch on it now because it's relevant.
Sorry, go on.
I'll explain why.
I hope you won't touch on that.
I wouldn't touch on it. This book.
No.
I will explain.
Can I just
please, let me explain why.
Yeah.
This thing, Boko Haram, which means Western education is forbidden, is coined by when at the earliest stage these people began to show promise. When they read and understand the way the Western world is put together, they became a danger to the West. Because that's become education for them is dangerous. You understand? So educating the people from the east and from the west part of Nigeria became some sort of a challenge to the British authorities. So not that they liked them, so the British began to suspect them as if we give this power to them to run the country, this country would take off.
Militant anti-colonialism was based on the leadership from the south. That's the point he's making. Whereas in the north, the entity that they had set up there was run by very generally speaking backward Muslim politicians who were not anti-Western, who were in bed with the West. It's like they set up a neo-colony in the north of Nigeria to help them run the whole of Nigeria. And so in that sense, the leadership in the north were their friends. I think that's what the brothers
That's right. They played golf with them. They played polo with them and so on. They're real friends of them.
They had horse culture and polo fitted in and all of that. They're very comfortable up there in a way that they weren't in the south.
They don't want to advance the people.
Yeah, that's right.
So the eastern and the western people appear to be more aggressive because in the west they had the first television enterprise in the whole of Africa. They have free education. All this therefore became a danger to the colonial master because you can't have these Africans being educated. The more educated, in fact, they started, the education came to them first. They had the West. So they had people who were highly trained, and they're not going to be pushed around by what you know.
Yeah.
So people like
By the backward people from the north.
well, I won't use the word backward. I think we need to get this right. People who think they're backward, it's just that they're denied opportunity to go to school. They're Africans like you and I.
Yes, absolutely.
So if you give them the opportunity to go to school, they will not be backward.
Yes.
It's like if you deny them education and then you tell them that they're backward, that annoys me.
Yes.
Because open the opportunity for them,
Yes.
and you see they will also develop.
Yes, I wasn't expressing my own view. I was expressing the view that I think the Westerners took of the North. Of the northern people. And the explanation that you give is, of course, perfectly correct. One other little point.
Yes.
I think it's very important that we, there are two inaccuracies. One is that the Sudan is actually bigger than Nigeria, one. And two, that it became independent before Ghana, accepting that we don't recognize it because we think of it as an Arab country. But the first black African country to get independence in the post-war period was actually Sudan, 1 year before Nigeria, 1 year before Ghana.
Okay, so Sudan has had its independence, but it was also rigged. It had the Muslim north and the eastern.
Yeah, and that's why we don't count. South. That's why we don't count it, because we regard it as Arab. In fact, it's not Arab at all. It's black people, either mixed race black people in the north who call themselves Arab, and Africans like you and me, not mixed at all, in the south, but they're always there. And so it get called Arab, but not Arab. Apart from the language in the north, there's nothing Arabic about it.
So when the first wave of independence started, Sudan, then Ghana, there were people who were Pan-Africanists, like Kwame Nkrumah. Sorry, your famous name, Kwame. And Nkrumah. He wanted the whole Africa to be one country, one army. Well, in fact, he married an Egyptian. Right, so people like Kwame Nkrumah, who was under the tutelage of Nnamdi Azikiwe helped, and so on. So all these people like Julius Nyerere, Jomo Kenyatta, all these guys, that Zambian guy Kenny Kaunda, they're all Pan-Africanists. But what was then happening in Nigeria, especially after the Congo uprising, the Congo scenario, because Patrice Lumumba, they tried to divide the country and so on. The Nigerian soldiers, the officers, went there and tried to help a part of the UN delegation to try and stem the what was going on. So when they returned, they said to themselves, we can't have Nigeria, mess up. We South Africa is going to need us, and other African countries, which Kwame Nkrumah said, Ghana is free today, but it's not free really until the whole of Africa is free. So that sort of thinking was in the mindset of the earlier leaders. What then happened was the young hotheads, if you call them hotheads, the officer class, the young officer class, because the senior officers were part of the establishment. They're not going to do any coup. So the young officers who are being outside Nigeria, looking at surveying what's happening in Africa. We need to move forward, guys. What's happening here? So they decided the way Nigeria was going, with all the turmoil going in the West I mentioned earlier, and all the instability built into the Nigerian independence, and also forever in perpetuity, the northern nobody else is ever going to rule Nigeria except from the north.
Because they have the numbers.
They had the numbers.
Allegedly.
I say they make us believe. They had the numbers, and they had everything that was in Nigeria was sited in North. So people had to go up there to do their factories and work and so on. So following, if you like, Nigeria sliding into corrupt, failed politicians. So I mentioned those important politicians earlier on. They had a different vision. But the actual people running the new independent country became corrupt. That we're saying, what's going on here? We're supposed to be independent, but you're dragging us backwards. So they became ostentatious, they're flaunting their money and so on. So the military stepped in and said, enough is enough. They plotted.
That's the first coup.
They did. I think there were other coups in, is it Mali or Chad or something?
No, just in Nigeria.
So the first Nigerian coup, 1966, January. So they set up a scenario whereby they wanted to get rid of the politicians. So unfortunately, they killed the prime minister, who, of course, from the north.
So Tafawa Balewa.
Tafawa Balewa. Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa. He was from the north.
Yeah.
They killed.
And he's the emir, so he's not only the political leader, but he's in a way the religious leader of the north.
Well, let me explain that. No, there are two people.
Yeah.
One is the Tafawa Balewa, who is the prime minister of Nigeria. He's not the Muslim guy. The Muslim guy is called Sadwana of Sokoto, who's Bello.
Yeah,
Bello was the guy. So Bello is like the spiritual leader. Ahmadu Bello. He's the one who says, if you get a job, it's the northern first. So he was, in a way, running the whole country by proxy, as it were. So the military killed him, which is, if you like a big headache.
Yes.
So the military, young hotheads, they killed him. They killed the prime minister. They killed, I think, a senior northern soldier. Okay.
Yes.
And then they killed the finance minister, someone who's from the west. No, he's from Okotibu, I think, is from the Midwest. They killed Akintola, who's from the west, but the person from the east, called Opara, was not killed. And they said, hang on, wait, what's going on here? You killed all the other people, and you didn't kill the guy from the east. The guy from the east said he heard there was going to be a coup. According to the
ran away,
and they ran away because Archbishop Macarius was visiting him. Macarius is a visiting dignitary
from Greece,
Cyprus. So
yes.
it's Cypriot Greek, Greek Cypriot. So he was visiting his part of Nigeria. So Opera went and ran into where he was staying. So if the military were coming after him, they had to create an international scene. So the military surrounded him, but because the coup failed, those military who were surrounding the Archbishop Macarius were told to stand down. So they didn't kill him or the Eastern Premier.
Yeah.
So the story then filtered in that the coup was stopped in the Lagos by the military officer senior to the junior officers. His name, of course, is Agi Urensi. He happened to be from the east. A guy called Ojukwu was also in the north, and he managed to contain the coup over there. And they negotiated the coup plotters to allow Nigerian military to take over the temporary running of the country, because now the civilians, elected civilians, are now being, most of them killed, apart from the Eastern Premier. So what then emerged was a coup which was designed to try and make Nigeria stable. Remember, the West was unstable. The election was no longer credible. Wallace Soyinka, in fact, he went and he put a mask on and tried to say that the coup, put a mask on to say that elections were fraud. He went to the radio broadcast like this, and said this nonsense about having an election which was rigged was not acceptable to the West. So that led to a real turmoil, which the military stepped in to try and calm. When the coup occurred, the whole country breathed a huge sigh of relief and said, wow, we now got a country. And all the corrupt politicians started hiding. Some of them started declaring how much they've stolen. The North was celebrating, the East was celebrating, the West celebrated, saying, at last, we now have a country. But the problem then was the British, it's not the way it was designed. You can't have someone from the East running the country, because it's no longer the plan. So it was the British BBC that first said, this is now beginning to look like an Igbo coup. Now, so that's an incendiary thing to say. For anyone who's in the broadcasting, if you say it's now beginning to look like an Igbo coup, some people latched onto it. Because if it's now an Igbo coup, and Igbos are already becoming what we call privileged pariah in the north, you can see the signal begin to build up to get rid of the Igbos, because they've now taken over our jobs and they're now ruling us as Abubakar Tafawa Balewa. You can understand where this was going. So before, as a result of that coup, there was a planned counter coup. And in order to run the country, before we come to plan counter-coup, in order to run the country, the person who found himself as the head of state was the head of the military, who happened to have gone to Congo as a UN delegate and so on. So he was now ruling Nigeria as
What's his name?
Aguiyi Ironsi, Major General Aguiyi Ironsi. So he is now ruling Nigeria as a military, and each region he appointed military officers to administer the regions because the civilians are now waiting to what to do, hand power back. For that to happen, he made decrees and said, this is the rule we're going to run this by, unify the country. You can't unify a country which is all federal. And the people in the north said, no, we don't want to join. What's going on? We don't want to be part of the country. We are a northern federate state federation. You have your western federation and eastern federation. So there was an issue now about how do we force people in Nigeria to work as one. So the decree was 34. They used this as an excuse, as it's actually what Nigeria is running now. Nigeria is still a unitary country. It's still a unitary state run from the center. This guy was advocating running in from the center. They rebelled against him and did a counter coup. This counter coup got rid of all the Igbo officers in one night. And then the military with the civilians descended on the Igbo population in the north and started the killing. So this killing started in the killing started around May 66, and so much so that May 29, 66, and July 29, 66, and September 29, 66, systematic dates. Lots and lots of people were killed, ranging between 30 to 50,000, and 2 million returned back to the eastern part. So that's really the beginning of the war. Because when you kill that number of people, we're not just talking about communal killing. You descend anyone who's Igbo in the north, you kill them. Some were running in the train. Some of the people who managed to get into the train were beheaded and the body dumped in the train. Pregnant women had their abdomen ripped out, children killed. So what was happening in 66 was something totally phenomenally different that the African have ever experienced, because like your brother, we're neighbors, and now I'm being killed. So I run away with everything I ever possessed back to if I escaped, I managed to return back to my village. So they have returned to their village now. So by the end of 66, there was nowhere in Nigeria, in the north, even the killing went to the Lagos, the capital. So Chinua Achebe has to escape from Lagos for his life. Someone tried to put the theory, his sword mightier than the pen. It's not actually as funny as it sounds. So he has to, first of all, save his life before he argued whether when they come to shoot him, whether his pen is going to fight against them anyway. So Chinua Achebe escaped and was so disappointed that even in his own capital, he's not safe.
Do our listeners know who Chinua Achebe was?
Well, Chinua Achebe, as you know, is the person who wrote one of the most striking book in African literature about 60 years ago, 1958, when he first published what we call Things Fall Apart. And it's worth reading. So it's the first time an African was reading a book about Africans and how their culture and so on was set up. So when he wrote it, the teacher said, well, this book doesn't have any form. He said, what is form? Like everything good you decide, they always start to talk it down. So he published it, the manuscript, typed it and sent it to London. And he sat in somebody's office for months and months, and he didn't have a copy. There's no photocopy in 58. And if we had lost that manuscript, there's no way we would know about Things Fall Apart. So he was appointed to BBC equivalent to Nigeria Broadcasting Service. So when the head of that, who was a white woman, was coming to London, he begged her to go to these publishers, please, go and rescue my manuscript.
What's happening there.
So she returned, stormed into the office and said, what's happened to the manuscript? He said, what manuscript? So eventually said, if you don't do anything with the manuscript, I'm going to sue you, blah, blah, blah. And they quickly printed it. That's why we have Things Fall Apart today. So Chinua Achebe is celebrated author.
His next book is called Man of the People or something, which actually tries to deal with that contemporary situation in Nigeria.
So it's almost prophetic.
Yes.
In the sense that if you read his books, it's like it's cataloging what's happening in Nigeria.
Yes.
Because of those books, they say, the Igbos plotted the coup all along. Because it's so reflective of what's happening in Nigeria. But alas, late Professor Chinua Achebe, he was one of the Biafran ambassadors during the war to explain what's going on. So, where were we? We got to the stage
We're now at the Civil War.
Yeah, so the Civil War then came as a result of all the killings outside the eastern part of Nigeria. They weren't just killing Igbos, they were killing people with Bibio, people from Efik, all the tribes that make up eastern Nigeria. People. So all the people that make up eastern Nigeria were being killed. So they returned back to their ancestral land. As I said, trains were returning with people missing limbs, beheading. So although the trains had some people who survived, they have horrible stories to tell of what happened to them. So their relatives saw this and they were completely flabbergasted. What can we do? How do we then stay in this country called Nigeria? Because the plan was to get rid of the Igbos. The Yorubas, get rid of the Igbos, and some of my Yoruba friends would say, well, what am I talking about? When the Nigerian soldiers in Yoruba land went from door to door, they were knocking on doors, and when they used the word Toro used to be a tuppence, When you say Toro, the way you speak it, your accent will give away whether you are Yoruba or Igbo.
Okay.
And you got killed. Those were dubbed soul brothers, so they know where the Igbos lived, and so in Lagos. So for the outsiders, so how can you know who's Igbo and who's? You all look alike. Some of us have tribal markings. That's another issue. But the way we had shops and the way they behave, they can tell who's Igbo. So anyway, cut a long story short again, the Igbos were killed outside their own tribal zone, their own tribal land. When they returned back, they didn't know what it is they ought to do. There was a lot of anger in the eastern part of Nigeria. We now need to find a solution. The solution was, if we stay as we are, that's fine. There's no problem. The Nigerian will tell us what to do. The rest of the Nigeria will tell us what they don't want us to do. Do we go back and get killed again? Remember the 66. Although there are three waves of killing, the Igbos have been killed, or the Easterners have been killed in Nigeria, in northern Nigeria, in 1945. They've been killed in 1953. So this killing, the third time it's happened, the Biafrans or the Igbos or the Easterners felt enough was enough.
What prompted those earlier killings, which I wasn't aware of? The 45 and whatever.
The 45 was around the war. There was a sort of strike around Jos area, the tin mines. So because the Igbos were leading the boycotting, the British thought it'd be a good idea just to let them suffer a bit. So we were massacred as a result of that.
So the British
were in charge then.
British instituted massacre. Okay.
Not only
and
that,
on the second occasion?
The second occasion in 53 was about, we want independence from Nigeria, but in also we're not ready. And at the reception we had in Ibadan, which is the western part of Nigeria, insulted our delegates. So when they got back to north, they turned on the Igbos and killed them. So and the British investigated the killing and said, the reason for this killing is still in the ground and it may happen again. And nobody did anything about it. So the Igbos, therefore, the Biafrans, therefore, have a history of what has been happening to them over these years. So it was therefore this killing in 66 that literally broke the camel's back. Now, they decided, what do we do? Let's talk constitutional reform then to see how we can live together. And then it drifted into coming back to Ghana, a place called Aburi, where the representative from the eastern part of Nigeria, the western part, the northern part, the Midwestern then, and Lagos, they all got together, they sat down with the new military governor. They've killed the Igbo head of state, now Gowon is in charge. So they went to Ghana to say, how do we live together as citizens of one country? The conclusion was that, those people we chased out of Nigeria, those who are government employed, we need to pay them their salaries. They left from May, June, July. They haven't had any salary since January now. They're starving. We need to somehow help them. So the second, so one is therefore looking after those who have been displaced. There were 2 million, because the eastern region's government cannot cope with that sort of deluge of refugees. But the other thing that sustained them was this African way of doing things. Their own people, everyone had a village to go to, a relative, so they absorbed them. The extended family system was what saved those 2 million people. Okay, unlike the current Rohingya, it's exactly the same. Rohingya were being chased out from Burma. They would go back. The UN need to step in and feed them. But in the Biafran scenario, the 2 million people were absorbed by the Easterners. Nobody stepped in to do anything. So they were nursing that wound. They're now asking Nigeria, how do we live together? So they went to Ghana, Aburi, Ghana, to try and find out the way to work out something. So it was decided the best thing is to have those 4 regions stay where they are and move apart slightly. They call confederation. Yeah. So any decision has to be made by these 4 people leading the regions, and it's got to have concurrence. We've got to agree to it. And by the way, we're not going to use force to settle Nigerian crisis anymore. We're not going to kill each other anymore. Let's put force aside. They all signed this communique. Ankara, who was the general ruling Ghana at the time, by that time Nkrumah has been deposed. So Ankara was the one who chaired this meeting. The Nigerian delegation said, all right, why don't we put this communique to the African Union equivalent, which was the OAU. So that they have a copy of
63.
Yeah, so that we have a copy of this discussion. Say no, it's an internal matter. We are Nigerians. We can deal with this problem. So let's keep it to ourselves. But we have a written agreement which we both signed, and so on. So they went away from Ghana very, very pleased that the Africans, for the first time, were sat down, were able to resolve all their issues and decide the way going forward. But all the agreements were made. Within a few days of returning from Aburi, the Nigerian side started saying, no, we do not agree to this. Let's say, hang on. The head of Eastern Pass said, we had this on gramophone record. It's all recorded. Here's the sheet. Your secretary signed it. My secretary. They were actually eating from the same spoon, the same plate. And if you look at the pictures of Aburi, they all agreed it was amicably settled. But then Nigeria decided to start pulling away, from the agreement, start changing. The government of Nigeria then started trying to go back, and we believe they may have been influenced by the Western input when they now read the script of how these Africans can live together. So the Western, in my opinion, can never run their country unless you have conflict in Africa, because that fuels their while you're busy killing each other, they cart away your goods, isn't it? And they give you weapons to kill each other. So it helps them. So if Aburi was allowed, there would have been no Biafra war. There would have been, in fact, no mention of Biafra as a country. So the Nigeria would have remained the same. And when the wound of all the killings, when that has settled, it's possible Nigeria could have remained one country. But because Aburi was renamed, they did not carry out the decision, because it's like the final straw. It was like, we have been killed numerous occasions, and we now want somehow to forge a way of going forward. But you ignored all the decisions we made. You ignored everything, and you then put inside this communique, we can declare state of emergency at any time. So the Easterners were scratching their head, but you went and so they wrote a shirt, on Aburi we stand. Yeah, it's like the last straw. On Aburi we stand. So because that was reneged on, Biafran said, look, because that was so on the accord was signed in January, 4th and 5th of January 1967. So Ojukwu said to the people, we just have to wait for Gowon to come to us and agree with what we said. So Gowon started changing.
You haven't told the listeners who Ojukwu was.
Sorry. Ojukwu was Emeka Ojukwu was the person who was appointed after the coup, the first coup, which got rid of the Nigerian politicians in what they call the First Republic. He was appointed to administer the Eastern region.
And he's a soldier in the then Nigerian army.
Yes, he was a Nigerian soldier, first officer trained first Oxford graduate Nigerian military.
Yeah, general.
General.
Mm-hmm.
So he wasn't a general then, he was a lieutenant colonel.
All right.
When he was ruling,
Mm-hmm.
so he was appointed to administer
Mm-hmm.
Eastern Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Just as somebody is called Ejo was appointed to administer Western Nigeria,
Mm-hmm.
Adebayo was appointed to administer Western Nigeria, and Katsina was appointed to look after Northern Nigeria. And then you had the overall supreme commander called Agi Ironsi.
Mm-hmm.
So when Agi Ironsi was removed, Gowon stepped into his place.
Mm-hmm.
When they went to Buri, they didn't even know where Agi Ironsi was.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't accepted that he was dead.
Mm-hmm.
So Juku said, well, first we have to decide that he's dead, he's not dead. So therefore, we cannot we cannot recognize Gowon as the supreme head until we decided.
Mm-hmm.
So it was in Aburi that they declared that the supreme commander has died.
Mm-hmm.
And the Juku said, okay, if that's the case, we lower the flag as military and move on. The king is dead, long live the king, and so on. So that concept was put in place. So Gowon was going to be recognized as the overall head of the Nigerian. But he reneged, even though he's junior to Ojukwu and he's junior to other people like Adebayo from the West. So strictly speaking, there was an indisciplined Nigerian army. Because the next person after Major General Gowon, after General Agi Ironsi was killed, it should have been a Yoruba person who stepped into the breach to be the Nigerian army called Ogundipe. But he was not allowed to be the head of Nigerian military because the Northerners didn't like the idea of anybody else ruling the country other than